Uh, uh,
And we'll give it some time for people to start filtering in. But hi, all. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to our Salon series. Um, Feel free to put in the chat where you're signing in from, if you're in the Bay or if you're from outside. We'd love to hear where people are zooming in from. And we'll just give it a couple of minutes for folks to come in. But very happy to be joined by Rob, Nisha, and Miguel. Sarah is over here with me, helping out with any technical things for Zoom. Um, Hopefully it'll go pretty smooth. Um, there are sometimes like little hiccups with the internet and such, but please bear with us if anything of the sort happens. But yeah, as folks come in, we can just go ahead and give you guys a little bit of information about some programs that we have coming up at the archive. Um, for those of you that are not familiar, we do have a postgraduate certificate program at the archive called Type West, and it's basically a type-centric class where you learn all about typeface design. There's a bunch of workshops and lectures. You learn about the history of typography and lettering, and you can learn more on our website under the Education tab. And then we have some more lectures and workshops coming up. This one actually starts today, the 7th. And during this workshop, it's going to be a hands-on experience using foundational web languages. And using all of this, you will explore typographic expression on the web. And then there's another online workshop coming up called Letter Quest starting September 13th. And with Kelsey Gray, who is the author of Let's Make Letters, you will go on an alphabetical adventure.
mhm.
And then Intro to Modern Type Design is another online workshop, which is kind of a recurring program that we have with Kel Tropton, where you will be able to design your own original typeface during the course of these 10 weeks. And then with Thinking with Your Hands, you will be exploring different ways of drawing, making, and seeing letters. And then this is the next salon that we have coming up. This will be a hybrid salon which I am super, super excited about. It'll be hosted by Sarah Getz, who is here with us today. And during the salon, Sarah will take you through various modular letter systems that we have in our permanent collection in the archive and look at them through the liberation of, through the lens of transgender and genderqueer liberation. In this workshop, this will be 4 weeks long, and you will learn how to bring a 17th century style flourish to your letters. Should be a lot of fun. And then finally, we have putting pencil to pixel. And during this workshop, you will be using iPad or Procreate as a tool to create dynamic, polished, and punchy lettering pieces. And if you're interested in learning any more about the events that I just spoke about, feel free to go onto our website, go onto the events tab, and you can register, you can get more information, and feel free to get in touch with us if there's anything that you have more questions about as well. And without any further ado, welcome to Salon Series 42 with Trust Your Struggle. I am super, super excited to be joined by Rob New Trujillo, Nisha Sethi, and Miguel Bounce Perez of Trust Your Struggle, which, as a lot of you may already be familiar, is a multi-generational Oakland-based collective of artists, educators, and cultural workers who are dedicated to mobilizing their communities on social justice, environmental sustainability, and community organizing through public art. I will actually stop sharing this and start sharing the slideshow in just a second. And I will hand it over to Rob to tell us more.
Thank you so much, Kanaja. Thank you to Letterform for having us here. My name is Rob, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the crew, and then each one of us will do a little bit of background on our individual paths and how the letters have helped us grow as artists. So this right here is a piece that we completed in San Francisco, I believe, and it was multi-generational collaboration with crew members and some OGs as well. Next slide. The collective was founded in 2003, so this year is actually our 20th year, and it started in the Bay Area, had members from Northern, Southern, and Bay Area, California, and then migrated to New York and a whole bunch of other places in between. Next slide. So who is the crew? It's basically like a bunch of rabble rousers who all had similar ideas around making art, grew up around graffiti and mural making, and wanted to talk about social justice issues. But I'll read to you kind of like the bio that we have, which is TYS is an artist collective of visual artists, educators, and cultural workers dedicated to social justice, environmental sustainability, community organizing through the medium of public art and activism. Our work includes, but is not limited to, graphic design, printmaking, photography, illustration, graffiti, multimedia installations, and mural painting. And the really important key thing about this is that we all come to it with similar ideas and disciplines, but also very unique and diverse disciplines. And so it makes, when we get down on a wall or when we do a workshop or when we do a show, it makes it that much more richer because we all come with different ideas from our own backgrounds. And this mural right here is in San Francisco. This is Tuloy Po Kayo. This was led by CC and Miggs. It's a really beautiful wall in the Soma district. Next slide. So what do we do? At a most basic level, we paint big public artwork, murals. We have done in the past and continue to do workshops with people. And then we will also get down and do an installation where it's not just hanging paintings or putting a mural inside of a gallery. We'll actually do sculpture and we'll hang pieces and we'll do site-specific installations. The line where it says we are visual translators, what that means is basically we do our own work where we will basically do some of our own research and come up with some art to like basically make it known, but we also work a lot with communities. And so we'll talk to them, we'll do a workshop with them, they'll give us ideas, we'll exchange ideas, and then we'll take all of that, sometimes working with the community as well, and translate that. We create artwork that tells stories of revolutionary movements, honoring the communities and individuals that drive them. Our purpose is to use art to defend, disrupt, transform, and inspire. And we champion education through mentorship and collaboration. And so being able to do both the public art where anyone can walk up to it and see it. Usually the gallery work that we do, it's free. Anyone can walk up and see that. And then same with the workshops where we can have an exchange, makes it really accessible. So just about anyone can come in and experience it. And then, you know, they learn from us and we learn from them. Next slide. So where was it founded? I mentioned it was in California, and then when? So 2003. Most of us were in the Bay Area when it started, but we have members that are in we have members that are in New York right now, in the Vietnam and LA, Sacramento. Most of us are in the Bay, but when we first started doing work, we got to travel. And so it was doing a lot of work in the Bay Area, but also getting to travel across the US, all over the US, really. Then going to Mexico, then going to the UK, going to Canada, the Philippines, Nicaragua, a lot of different places. And every time we go somewhere, we get to exchange with people as well. So yeah, like I said, this year is our 20th anniversary. And these walls right here are done at the California Hotel, which is a historic location in Oakland. So you see a lot of Oakland specific things in there. Next slide. This one is a little bit pixelated, but how do we do it? So basically, we collaborate with people. And so, as I mentioned before, it's an exchange. The really cool thing about being an artist is that you can get down and you can pretty much say or do whatever you want and like make it so someone looks at it and goes, wow, that's amazing. But the cool thing about doing work related to social justice issues or campaigns or political issues is that although you may know a lot about the issue, usually the people who are most directly affected by it or who are going through it are the most expert at it. They know the most. And so when you collaborate with them, you get like the juiciest artwork because you're going to have details and things in there that anyone just reading a book wouldn't be able to find. So our collaborative practice involves placekeeping, which facilitates ongoing relationships with the communities we work with. And it's also rooted in resistance. We paint images of, hopeful movements, freedom and justice. And this is important because sometimes you come in, you fly in, you try to do something really beautiful, and then you bounce. But it's really important to kind of like keep tabs on the folks that you're working with, or they keep in touch with you, and even to go back and visit those places. Next slide. Here is an example of a group of young people that we were doing a workshop with in a high school. This is an example of a bunch of young folks who were living in the area where we were doing a mural in San Francisco. And then on the left is an example of a bunch of young folks in front of a wall that I believe it was Sean and Migs painted in the Philippines. Next slide. Here are a bunch of other examples of both painting and workshops. So on the top left is a mural of Trayvon Martin that was not just TYS, it was a group called Dignidad Rebelde, Ori Original. A bunch of community folks came and helped with that mural. On the top right, you see one of our collective members. On the bottom left, Sean, who was doing a workshop with folks in the Philippines, a bunch of young folks trying to figure out what they were going to do. On the bottom right is a whole bunch of us, including our brother Evan Bissell and our mentor Brett Cook. And this is basically working with him. He's an OG to us, so working with him. And then on the bottom left is another detail of us working on that mural of Trayvon. Next slide. More examples of us basically working. If you see on the top right there, there's Miguel and Aaron just kind of staring at the wall, figuring out what's missing, what's off, what needs to be added, or what's working well. To the left, you see Sean. He's sitting in a chair thinking about this mural that him and Miguel painted in Mexico, which is like I believe it was a tribute to an OG muralist. And then on the bottom left, myself and Cece thinking about, we were curating and making a show in Sacramento, thinking about how we can make it fresh. And then on the bottom right is a picture. I don't even remember who that was in that suit, but it was the wall that you first saw us and using a lift to get up there. Next slide. Here is a crew photo of most of us. I'd say we working with artists, it's like herding cats sometimes. It's hard for any one of us to get all of us together, but this is most of us just hanging out at tattoo shop Miguel works at. And we're just kicking it, having a meeting, shooting the shit, talking shit. Next slide. And I want to go back to the reason why we do what we do. These are the bullet points that we came up with after like meeting and talking about it and trying to sound smart and be like, what can we put on the website that talks about or synthesizes what we do? And it is make art that reflects the times. Talk about the things that are going on. We don't always hit this point because we're human, but we try to do it and have done so over 20 years many times. Another one is to imagine a new future. So because we're artists, we can not only talk about what's happening, but what could happen. And then a big, huge part of this is inspiring us to kind of keep the legacy going. Although we have a long career in making artwork, we're part of a longer lineage of artists. And so it's taking that inspiration that we got, doing our thing, and hopefully inspiring a new generation. And then next is to embrace the collective process with each other. It's not one famous or one special artist show. It's all of us not trying to get our thing off, but trying to get the message off and trying to make sure that it resonates with the people who are most directly around it. Number three is like the relationships that we form are really important, more so than just a beautiful piece of art. It's like, how do you treat the people you work with? Number four is prioritize morality over financial gain. So there have been big companies that have been like, hey, would you do this for us? And it really comes down to like, are we rocking with their business practices and what they do, or the people who we work with. Number five is to leave behind a blueprint for future generations, again, passing on the torch as it was passed to us. And then number six is like dedication to practice, study, and execution of meaningful work, meaning it's not just for art's sake, even though that's really important, and also to just keep working at it because we can always get better. Next slide. All right, so that is the gist of the TYS. You can go to our website and figure out more, but I'll let you hear from some of our members here so we can get to know each other better. And I'll pass it to Nisha.
All right. Thank you, Rob. That was an amazing introduction to the crew. I'm honestly so honored to be a part of this crew. I'm one of the newest members. And so I've been rocking with them for maybe like 8 to 10 years, maybe. And yeah, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about who I am, my role kind of in the crew, and my journey as an artist. My name is Nisha. I'm a sign painter, I'm a graphic designer, and I'm a printmaker. I also happen to fool around with spray paint every now and then. You go to the next slide. I was born and raised in Berkeley, California. And my parents immigrated from India and Kenya. So this black and white picture is actually a picture of my dad in Kenya, where he was born and raised, with his 11 brothers and sisters. So my dad has a huge family, and he actually ended up moving to London when he was like 13. So I had a lot of like childhood trips back to London, and actually had a chance to visit Kenya when I was a teenager. And then this pixelated picture is of my mom in the orange, and she immigrated from India, where she lived in Bombay, and came to the US in 1977. And she was a high school student. She went from living in Bombay to going to Oakland Tech, and eventually ended up going to Cal. And then somehow through the like arranged marriage community, her and my dad were introduced to each other and got married, ended up settling in Berkeley, where I was born. And the picture at the bottom is of me and like some of my friends from elementary school. And this picture is really cool because one of my friends showed it to me recently, and I'm actually wearing like a sweatshirt that someone said that I designed for the school. And I don't even remember that, but it was like the first piece of clothing that I ever designed. So that's a cool picture. Next slide. And some of my early influences, and just like how I got into art and graffiti. I was always like the class artist. Like I said, I was like, I designed that sweatshirt. So I was always like really creative and artistic, but I'd never really got into graffiti until like much later, until I was like in middle school, high school. And one of my earliest influences, I think, to like, or just like my earliest exposures to graffiti was when I went to Arts Magnet. And so there's like a picture at the bottom of my school because I couldn't find too many photos. But this school was really cool because there was a legal graffiti wall in our playground, which means that it's a wall that anyone pretty much has a permission to paint. And so ever since I was in like first grade to sixth grade, I grew up seeing this graffiti wall transform over and over again with all these different pieces. And so when I really like trace back to like my earliest influence, I would definitely say it all started like at Arts Magnet from when I was a little kid. And I just remember like being fascinated by all the pieces and just like amazed at all the letters and everything. And then another one of my earliest influences came from my uncle, who was actually a graffiti writer in Oakland in like the like the mid to late 80s is when he started. And I know him as Raju, but he wrote Hero. And so this is one of his like early pieces from 95. And I'll talk about him a little bit more later, but he was definitely a huge influence on me like early on and was a mentor to me. And the picture at the top is of like an old home video that I actually like found in his room when I was a kid. And it was called Malicious Mischief. And it was a hard-edged homemade graffiti video. And I actually like stole it from his room, and I went home and I waited till everybody left and I watched it. And it was like all this like live footage of like people bombing and tagging. And when I say bombing and tagging, I mean like they were bombing like freeway signs and like tagging the Muni. And it was just like really raw footage. And like I had grown up seeing so much graffiti in my environment, just like living in the Bay Area. But I just like, I never knew how it got there. And I could never understand like how people could like tag these like places that are really tall or really hard to get to. And then I watched the movie, and it was like such an eye-opening experience. And in the movie I was exposed to like amazing, like legendary Bay Area graffiti artists like Dream and Spy. And you know, I just remember like I would watch the movie again and again, and I would pause it, and then I would like trace some of the pieces in my notebook and just like try to copy it. And so that's kind of like how I started. We can go to the next slide. And then when I got to Berkeley High, I actually found out that Spy was an art teacher there. And that really like blew my mind because, you know, like I said, I had seen all his pieces in the video, and then obviously like in my environment. And he's just like such a Bay Area legend. And so I remember I used to like go to his classroom, and that's me and him in the corner. And I would just like bug him after class, and that he would like tell me all these stories, and like he would let me look through all his old black books. And it was just like the most amazing thing. And I really felt like it was a sign that I was like moving in the right direction. And he was definitely like another like early mentor for me, continues to be a mentor. And so these are some of his pieces here. What I really appreciated about Dream and Spy was that they always put like the revolutionary element in their work, and there was always like a really powerful message. And when I was at Berkeley High, I started organizing, and I joined a social justice organization on my campus called Youth Together. And I was making a lot of political posters, and that was like really when I first like became conscious and started to like learn about the systems of oppression. And my politics were just becoming more radicalized. So I definitely looked up to Dream and Spy because they always had these like radical political messages in their work. And I definitely like related to that more than just like other artists or other writers. So definitely like huge inspiration to me. And yeah, just like Bay Area legends, man, for real. Okay, go to the next slide. And then this is my uncle. I don't have that many pictures of him, but this is probably taken in the late 80s, early 90s. And I think this is a piece that he might have did with someone else. And yeah, it's cool to see because you know, as an Indian woman, as a Punjabi girl who writes graffiti, I didn't really like know anyone else of my same background that was like just involved with like hip hop culture. So for me to like have a role model to look up to is so important and definitely shaped who I am. And you can go to the next slide. There's actually a picture of where my uncle lived in Oakland, and that's my grandma standing on the stairs. And yeah, I you know, when I was a kid, we used to go over to their house all the time because we lived in Berkeley. And that little window all the way at the top of the house was like where Raju's room was in the attic. And so, like I said, we used to go and sneak up there, and his whole room was just like bombed, and there was just like tags and stickers and graph everywhere. And like I said, he used to write heroes, so this is kind of some images of his work. And yeah, at first he was like not really trying to talk to me about it because we had such a huge age difference, and I was just kind of like the annoying little cousin. And then eventually, like, I think he realized I was actually really serious about it, and he used to like send me packages in the mail, and they would be full of like tags and stickers, and he would like mail me spray paint. So he definitely like equipped me with some of the tools that I needed to get started. And yeah, I just feel really blessed that like I had a role model like that to look up to. And I'm pretty sure he was like the first Indian graffiti writer in the US, if not ever. I never met anybody else really. So shout outs to him. I mean, he definitely paved the way. And eventually we ended up painting some walls together, which was just like amazing, full circle moment. Next slide. So yeah, like I said, he was definitely like an early inspiration to me, him and Spy. And so these are just some pictures of me painting some pieces and tagging. At that time, it was just like whatever I could get my hands on. I don't even know if there was much Montana spray paint available, and I didn't have the budget for it. So, a lot of spray paint just bought at Home Depot, and experimenting with all the different caps. And it was definitely, I had a moment where like my laundry room was basically like my little lab where I would make mops and markers, and I'd be messing with different cans and figuring out all the different pressure and everything. So yeah, this is just some pictures of me and like some early work. You go to the next slide. And then as I went on to like make bigger and like better pieces, I started tagging and mostly just doing like hand styles. And then eventually, you move on, kind of graduate to doing like pieces and things that are like larger scale. And this was definitely a highlight in my artistic journey, was when I got to paint 5 Points, which is considered the Mecca of graffiti, in Queens, New York. It's not there anymore, but yeah, that was definitely like a huge moment for me. And so these are pictures of me in New York in 2012, and a picture of me with Lady Pink, who is just like, the legendary first female graffiti writer pretty much. And I got to meet her when I was out there. So she gave me her blessings, which was super dope. Next. And then as I went on to like figuring out what I had to do professionally, I mean, I obviously like couldn't do graffiti forever. So I had to figure out a way where I could like make money, right? So I went to college, I studied graphic design, and I was working in a studio behind a computer, and I just wasn't fulfilled. Like I felt like I needed to just be like working with my hands. So I found this program in LA where they taught sign painting. And it was like one of the last surviving programs in the country. And as soon as I found out about it, I was like, you know what, I gotta go there right now, and I gotta like learn under Doc, because Doc Guthrie, who is in the picture above, is just a legendary sign painter, and I wanted to study under him because I knew he was getting older and getting closer to retiring. So I ended up just dropping everything and moving to LA, and did a 2-year program where I was up every day at 7 o'clock, breathing in one-shot fumes and learning how to paint letters. And yeah, like the picture at the bottom left is of just like a bunch of lines, because for the first, like basically like for the first 6 months, like all you were allowed to do was just paint bars. And that's really where I learned like how to use a brush properly. I learned about like muscle memory, and really like helped me develop, the like basics when it came to lettering. And then we did a whole lot of charts, studying the alphabet. And then these are just like some pictures from our classroom. You can go to the next slide. And then, yeah, this is like me in action in class. And we were given different assignments where we were given the copy and then we had to create our own signs based on that copy. So these are just some really old pictures from when I was studying sign painting. And yeah, it was like really challenging. I was, you know, in basically a classroom full of guys. And a lot of them were like people that came from a graffiti background. And so I could relate to them in that way. And it was just a whole new experience for me, like living in LA. I had never like moved out of the Bay before. And then to be like tossed into this like trade school where I was learning sign painting every day was just like honestly like some of the best years of my life. And I definitely realized that I found my calling, you know, because I always had a love for letters, but yeah, I feel like sign painting is really what got my heart. So I'm still working as a sign painter today, amongst other things. You can go to the next slide. And then this is like some of my recent work that I've created. A lot of my work that I create, you know, does have like a political influence to it. I make a lot of like protest signs, and that's sort of like my focus with my work and my lettering, just because I feel like I want my work to have a purpose beyond just being like cool and something you can post on Instagram. And a lot of my pieces that I painted have been um, held at huge protests and things like that. So it really like gives me an opportunity to see the power in our work as artists and the power that we have with lettering and messaging. So these are just some examples of some of the work that I've created over the years. I've also been experimenting a lot with printmaking and letterpress, just anything that involves lettering. Like I wanna learn it and master it. So I've been working a lot with the letterpress, which is a wood type that you can. It's a really old practice. So I've been experimenting a lot with that. You can go to the next slide. This is just an example of like how I created a print on the letterpress and then translated it to a mural on the wall. So just like experimenting with how like letters and letter form can like create or can exist in different forms. Okay, go to the next one. And then these are some pieces that I made that were like a combination of collage and letterpress and wood type. So just experimenting with how I can like mix different mediums together to create different effects. Next slide, please. And then, yeah, these are, you know, just some pieces that I've done recently that are TYS related, Trust Your Struggle related. The picture on the left is of a huge mural that we did in Oakland called Oakland Dreams. And I did the lettering for it, and a bunch of other members from the crew, Aaron, Miguel, T, Sean, were also involved with that piece. So if you're ever in, you know, Oakland, feel free to drive by, check it out. That's definitely one of the like larger scale pieces that I've done. I don't really get a chance to do too many murals anymore, but yeah, any chance I get to rock with the crew is always, you know, an amazing experience and opportunity. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me. I appreciate you guys, you know, rocking with me and listening. And yeah, I'm gonna hand it off to the next person. Thank you.
Oh, yep, that's me. So, what's up, y'all? My name is Miguel. Miguel Bounced, I go by. So these are some pictures. The left is my uncle. That's like my childhood garage where we grew up. So I feel like you know, some of my earliest memories are just of drawings and cholo writing and lowrider stuff. My uncles and my dad, they had a car club back in the day in Berkeley. That's my uncle on the other uncle on the top right on my Filipino side. I'm Filipino Mexican. Um, and the bottom right, that's my mom's drawings when she used to be an operator, and she used to draw those little pictures on her notes. But yeah, so I feel like art has always been a super influence in my life, whether it be letters or paintings, drawings. All my sisters and my other aunts, they had really good handwriting, really good cursive that I always try to copy to. The uncles did more of the cholo styles, which you see on that left picture. That I always try to, some of my first influences always try to, it's just always there. It's always came back to me. Let's go to the next one. What's the next one? And so these are some earlier graph pieces. I always, like I said, I always like drew as a kid. And then, towards junior high, high school, I started really getting into more like cholo, tagging basically. The whole adrenaline rush of doing illegal stuff was super enticing for a young kid, so definitely was vandalizing back then. This one on the top, that's Psycho City, probably about like 1995-ish. And I always try to do something a little different. Not the same classic stuff. So I was trying to do that little, I forget, is that like Escher or something, that 3D looking bee right there. And the bottom one is like 97. I was just playing with letter forms, turning into a little shark submarine type thing. But I think, growing up in the Bay, the graph was always, I felt, is real like different. They always try to do different stuff, like it wasn't always letters too, which was, I always thought was interesting. There used to be the homegirl Reminisce, who used to paint these horses all around San Francisco, or Twist, who did these little characters instead of like a classic letter throw up. So I feel like that kind of, just always trying to be different in my work has always came from the Bay. So let's go to the next one. What's the next one? These are just some of my more favorite pieces. This one on the top is actually at that one's at Berkeley Arts Magnet, where Nisha went to school. And I think that pretty sure she saw this one when she was in school. And that's actually one of my first collabs with Trust Your Struggle. That one's probably about like 2006-ish, 2007-ish. I did the letters, and my boy Ben Mincho Vega, who's in New York, he's from out here. He's from Pittsburgh, but he's been in New York. But he did the Don Ferry portrait on the right. West Pitas, as Juan Way would say. And then bottom left, that's me and Vile over at 1 a.m. in SF. The other bottom right, that's at New Design High School, where they had this thing called Rooftop Legends, where they brought a bunch of OGs to come paint the top of this high school. In New York, they don't have playgrounds. They have like their play area on the roof. So it's pretty cool seeing you can see the whole city from the roof. And then it's pretty cool to paint it. That was with the homie Trickster. And let's go to the next one. What's the next one? These are just some of my more favorite lettering things. Like I said, I definitely got like influence from the classic styles, but I try to like change them up and be a little different. Like this one on the top left, that's kind of like influenced by like an Aztec style type thing. And then I think I really like these pieces because they're real technical to me. Like there's no kind of sketching. I just kind of go straight in, and the first line I make is, that's what's there, which is classic graffiti. It's hard. If you ever use spray paint, it's hard to put a line where you want it the first time and not have to come back to it and clean it up. So let's go to the next one. What's the next one? There's some more. Oh, that one's pixelated. That was a nice one. These are just more started getting more into the calligraphy cholo styles, started getting heavier back into that, I guess, more recently. Or not that recent. This is probably the Estria one, Bouncing Estria, the top left. That was at Club 6, San Francisco. I don't think it's Club 6 anymore, or something else. But that one was probably about 2009-ish or something like that. And then the one that's pixelated was actually from this graffiti battle, that Estria Invitational Graffiti Battle they used to do, the Life is Living, which is super cool. They brought there's live music, art, vendors, all kind of stuff, and a graffiti battle with a bunch of super dope artists from the Bay, and even they brought out folks from Hawaii and LA, all over the place. And that dream one, I won that one, which is pretty cool. Super honored. Got first place. And let's go to the next one. Oh yeah, so this is just kind of going back to that, some of my earlier influences, just the cholo styles, kind of mixing with calligraphy. Like I've studied penmanship for a long time. I think ever since I saw in school, ever since the first pretty girl was like, "Ooh, write my name like that." I've been in love ever since, and just trying to, get my hand nice. Let's go to the next one. And so this is kind of like a exploration of that calligraphy stuff, where I'm just they kind of start out as letter forms a lot of times, but I just kind of go with the lines of it. Kind of like so Nisha showed that picture of just lines earlier. I remember I took my aunt, who's a like classic calligrapher, like Old English and cursive. I took a class with her one time when I was probably like 12 or something, and she just had me draw straight lines the whole day. And I was like, oh, this is some bullshit. I'm not doing this. But then when I started getting back into it, I'm like, oh shit. It is just like training your hand to be able to do that same thing over and over and be able to perfect it. And so yeah, these are they're almost more like meditations, where you get into a zone and just try to make a line go with the next one. The bottom right one was like a live painting for Kula Arts at the Asian Art Museum in San Francisco. So that was pretty cool. I think that was when I first started to kind of do that style, and the other ones are from the art show I did, or it was pretty much all that style. Let's go to the next one. What's that? Oh, and so this one, it's pretty cool. I think that like basically graffiti is gave me the opportunity to do a lot of different type of work. I was doing a lot of freelance work for a minute. This one was a collab with Rio Yanez and Susie Lundy that was a backdrop for Jean-Paul Gaultier. I don't know if I'm saying his name right. He did a show at the De Young Museum. So that was pretty cool to have some cholo writing up in the De Young Museum and like get paid for it, which is pretty cool. Let's go to the next one. And this is just some more graphic design. I was doing a lot of graphic design stuff, like layout stuff, logo stuff, which is all, it's all came from graffiti. So I've always felt blessed that I've been able to like really kind of damn near do graffiti for a living for so many years. The Oakland Tales and Richmond Tales, that was a book series I did with actually so my friend from high school, I painted her room back in the day, and her mom was actually an author, and she remembered, the room and liked the room, so she wrote these books and wanted me to do the illustrations and the cover for it. And it actually became like they were in the schools for the Richmond and Oakland districts, which was super cool. A lot of it was mandatory reading for I think fifth, sixth grade or something like that. Actually, I got a resolution from the mayor of Oakland. I don't even know what that is, but that was pretty cool. Met the mayor and stuff. But yeah, this is just some examples of how I've been basically working off tagging on stuff. All right, let's go to the next one. And so this is just some examples of I don't do too much illegal stuff anymore, but every now and then I can't help it. And I feel like Trust Your Struggle is not just like the name of our crew, it's like inspirational shit if you read it. Most people who like I feel like you can Google search it and you'll find a lot of people that are like, oh, I just saw this thing on the wall today and it made me reflect on my life. Just something that can make you think. So these are just some tags and throw ups I've done around the town. There's a bunch online. Some people are like kind of taken it and made shirts, like kind of stolen it, which I personally love. Like we have group discussions within the crew, like when we see somebody a new person trying to like make a clothing line with Trust Your Struggle, and I'm personally like, man, they can get their money and better their life with it, let them do it. But if they're whack, let's send the lawyers on them. All right, let's go to the next one. What's the next one? And these are just some more examples of script stuff. The no eviction in the mission. I was with Renee Yanez, super OG, rest in peace, from San Francisco. He just liked my writing and wanted me to come do some signs for him. And that one I think that one was in like the New York Times or something. They had a picture of that. The original gangster, that's Juan Alicia's car, another one of our mentors in the crew, triple OG. But I think that's an example of just finding beauty in everything. The one on the bottom that was got kind of cropped off a little. That was some more Trust Your Struggle work. That was when we were in Mexico. And it's no justice, no peace translated. Let's go to the next one. What's that one? So now I started tattooing. Oh, I didn't get the newer ones in there. These are kind of some older ones, but yeah, the last 7 years or so I've been tattooing. I kind of thought I was gonna strictly be doing lettering, but kind of doing, that's kind of the least of what I'm doing. But the shop is filthy clean over in Berkeley. I think tattooing is similar to like graphic design in a lot of ways, where you're dealing with the client and you're trying to come up with something together. But I really appreciate that a lot of times in tattooing it's like something sacred for them, or someone, their child's name or something, or a really turning point in their lives. So it's pretty cool to be like a part of that with somebody and be able to like collab with people on momentous stuff for them in their lives, and I'm honored to be able to do it permanently for people. Let's go to the next one there. These are just some of the folks that I've tatted Trust Your Struggle on, coming back full circle on, my nice handwriting. Yeah, these are some crew members. Some dude in the middle is actually, he's an old school cholo who took me out on my first bombing mission ever when I was like 11 or something. Stole my dad's paint and went and did some block letters. Wait, yeah, that's Trust Your Struggle, man. And I think that's it. Like, I think that's all I got for me. Was that the last one? Yep. Now let's bring it on to Rob right here. My boy Rob, who I've known since like 7th grade, and we used to do graffiti together. And now he's a father and does father shit. But go ahead, Rob, tell him.
Right on, right on. I don't normally show the graffiti stuff that much anymore, but I'm gonna show some today, damn it. So yeah, my name is Rob. I'm from Oakland and Berkeley. Like Miguel said, known each other since junior high school days when you'd be in the locker room drawing on people's PE uniforms. They'd all be like crowded around him. So this right here is just a collage of some recent artworks that I've done. I'll get to the letters, but the majority of what I do now is like illustration, story stuff. And on the top right is a picture of me reading to some kids. I used to be a teacher in public school, so I would teach after school classes almost for 10 years, teaching DJing, teaching graph lettering if they wanted that. I would teach zine making, drawing, all types of stuff. But now I get to see the babies as a kid's book author and illustrator. And then on the bottom right, it's a little pixelated, but that's another crew picture. Not everybody in the picture. It's like I said before, it's hard to get everybody in the picture, but it's a good chunk of us. We had done this show in Sacramento at the Soul Collective, which is one of our homes in the world. And yeah, it was really nice to take a picture. Next slide. So I was born in Oakland. Went to most of my schooling was in Berkeley, but my mom's from Frisco, Hunters Point, Silver Terrace, and then my dad's from Gardena, which is in LA, kind of near Compton or Torrance. And you just get to see like I come from a mixed background, so the different types of people all together, the Black, Asian, Latino, Native, all that together. Next slide. When I was a kid, the thing that got me into graffiti first was through hip hop and R&B. And so what I saw was Belle Biv DeVoe. So on the top left, that's Ronnie, Mike, all of them together. This is after they left New Edition, and they, for a good chunk of time, they would rock these airbrush outfits and shirts, and that was really popular in the 80s at that time. And so when I saw it, I was like, yo, moms, gotta get that done, gotta get that. And she was really encouraging. And then on the top, on the bottom left, you'll see like that's my design for my overalls. That's what I wanted to get done. And I did tons of these. I did so many of them. And then on the top right, this is a really famous book for me. I saw spray can art before I saw subway art. And so this was a really pivotal moment for me, seeing that book and being like, oh, there's people who, this is what they do. I got to meet Dream and Spy on the bottom right. This is another picture from Psycho City in San Francisco there, and in the Bay Area. All over the US, really, there are meccas for graffiti. Some of them are like walls of fame. Some of them are kind of meeting grounds. And Psycho City in San Francisco on Market Street was one of those places for decades, where some of the illest from the Bay Area, like the kings and queens of the Bay, would come and get down, like Spy and Dream. That's a piece that you see of theirs right there. And then people from all over the world would come to the Bay Area. The Bay Area is a mecca for graffiti art. And so I'm just really lucky to have grown up here and to have been influenced by all of this. You can't really tell that well looking at the bottom right piece with Spy and Dream, but Spy did his letters backwards. So it says Spy and it says it backwards. And when I saw that as a kid, like there was no social media, there was no, I didn't have a cell phone, none of that. I was just like, I think I probably stared at that wall for like hours, just being like, how? And I didn't understand how they got up that high either. And I had known their work from Oakland walls and seeing that, but to see it like that up there, I was just blown away. Next one. So as a kid, I couldn't find any of my sketches. Otherwise, I would show you. I couldn't find none of them. I just moved recently, so my shit is all over the place. But I drew in sketchbooks mostly, and occasionally I would get down on the wall. I painted my room first, then do some illegal stuff here and there with other friends, with Miguel, with a bunch of people. And I did a bunch of horrible pieces, a bunch of horrible throw ups and characters and tags. I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to do a bunch of, you got to be a toy. You got to just get out there and do it. And so I did that. And this is the one on the left is probably one of my favorite pieces I ever did. This is in Albany. There was an Albany wall that was really famous. And it says Treasure. That used to be my name. Now, if you see it on my Instagram, it says TRES. It's short for Treasure. I don't really go by it anymore, but I used to. That was my name. And yeah, that was really fun. Like this paint was done with Orchard paint. So Orchard hardware store used to have their own brand of spray paint. This is before designer spray paints and all that. And you had to get good with like Orchard, Rust-Oleum, and then Krylon. Krylon was like the dope shit. Like you couldn't mess with Krylon until you got good at the other stuff. And so that was me messing around. And then to the right is like around 2000, right after 9/11, it was doing this banner for a march and a protest. Me and my son's mom actually worked on that. And at the time, there was just all these people rocking these NYPD hats and SFPD and like all the police departments. And it was because this had happened, they were trying to capitalize on the moment and say, "Hey, everybody, start rocking the PD, like get behind the police." And mind you, there were like plenty of officers that jumped in and saved people, but like the institution of policing in general, I was not with that. And I'd grown up knowing what they had done to people like me. And so I was definitely like police brutality, like the idea of like shooting black and brown folks just because you're scared. That didn't die just because there was a huge tragedy in the US. Next one. And so all through high school and even into college, I worked on letters constantly. And then this is like some recent work, like within the last 5 or 6 years. I grew into an adult and started doing illustration and design. And these are just some examples of recent things. So the one on the top left is in the summer of 2020. And pretty much like a good chunk of the crew all did group or individual pieces during that summer, kind of responding to the times. And this was one where I was collaborating with another artist, a Black woman named Binta Oyafemi. And she came up with the idea for just writing Black lives. And so I took that and just kind of flipped it, added a little bit of flavor to it. In the middle was some lettering. I too wanted to do the script and be fly like Miguel. I copied a lot of Miguel's stuff, trying to do the script the way he did it. And I wrote Free Palestine because there's been so many times over the years where when there's violence being perpetrated by Israel against Palestinians, it's always framed in favor of Israel. So I wanted to do something that was like, getting behind the freedom of Palestinian people. Then on the right, recently when the Roe v. Wade was struck down, I did that piece. It's based on a much older graphic that I can't remember who's the original artist who did it, but it's a very famous graphic that says "Keep abortion legal," and so I wanted to put my flavor on that. On the bottom left, I have been doing this series of exercises, basically trying to highlight people of color as a way to both practice myself and to also share knowledge with other young illustration students who I had taught or people who were following me. And so that one was all about Dolores Huerta. And so I put a bunch of images and also lettering about her life because she had such a fruitful and like hard and tough life. I just wanted to put a little bit of that in there. The bottom middle where it says Agents for Black Lives, this is like right around 2020 as well. There was a whole lot of attacks against Asian Americans, and people were trying to frame that as Black folks were the only ones doing that. And I was trying to show that there's been a long history of solidarity between those two communities, whether people who are living in a bubble know it or not. And then on the bottom right is a piece of Denise Oliver Velez. She was a a woman who was a Black woman who was both in the Young Lords Party and the Black Panthers, who are both politically active parties helping their communities, starting in different areas of the U.S. Panthers in the town in Oakland, and then the Young Lords in Chicago and New York. Next slide. So these are mine's going to be a lot shorter, but these are two TYS specific pieces, and the one on the left says ethnic studies in every school, and so does the one on the right. The one on the left that has like the sepia tones to it, we were doing a show in Sacramento again at the Soul Collective called Of Love and Riots. We had done one in New Jersey in 2007, and now we were doing a new one around, I think it was 2015 or something like that. I can't remember exactly the year, but I was fortunate enough, both myself, Nisha and Migs, we all went to Berkeley High School. And I think in some way or other, I can't speak for them, but I know for me, like I benefited from being able to take classes about my heritage and that of others. And that idea, ethnic studies, was birthed in the Bay Area, San Francisco State University, where I also went to school. And it populated into Berkeley High School. And then it has gone since then all over the US. And it's being fought against, and it's just the idea of learning about history from the point of view of Black folks, Indigenous people, Asian Americans, people who consider themselves Latino, Hispanic, or raza, like basically learning from their viewpoint in history, which has been intentionally erased or left out of history. And so I wanted to do a piece that basically celebrated the study of that being in school, because either you don't get it in schools in most places, or it's an elective, meaning that it's not mandatory for kids to learn that, which is why we have a lot of the stupidity that we have. So I really love doing the sepia piece for the TYS show. And so I decided to do another one that was purple, and just trying to show that, there's a huge swath of students of color who are going to be the majority of this country. And everybody needs to know about their histories and where they come from. Next slide. So bringing it back to the reason why we were invited to do this talk. So I'm really thankful. I think we're all really thankful to be invited to speak to y'all by the Letterform Archive. And I encourage you all to go see the show that they have, Subscription to Mischief, because a lot of the work that we do as graffiti artists is cool now, but like when we were youngsters, like it was looked down upon, it was talked shit about, it was like othered, it was all the words you can think of. And like it's only cool when like corporations get a hand of it and figure out a way to capitalize on it, And so we have spent like decades of our lives studying this and practicing and like researching and learning. And a lot of it was passed down through mentorship and working one-on-one, and sometimes with OGs who are a little bit older than you. And I think being able to find magazines like these, and like to have an institution like the Letterform Archive like champion it and highlight it and say, look, this is something you should be aware of, is really important, and it's really dope. And I really appreciate y'all for doing that. So these magazines, these are some of, beyond the spray can art, which I showed before, these are some of the first places where I started to see it being celebrated. And these are all done by independent graffiti heads. They were not done by MTV or Pepsi or anybody else like that. Can Control was one of the first ones. You see Fat Cat Magazine, Back Jumps, Scribble Jam, which I think was out of the Midwest, Brain Damage, 12 Ounce Profit, Style File, and then One Track Mind, which is from the Bay Area. All of these were, people basically self-publishing pictures. And back in the day, before there was magazines, you would just send them like in the mail, like, I got 2 copies of this picture, I'll send you one, and then you send me one. And that's how we kind of learned about styles all across the US before the internet, before social media. Now you can find YouTube videos showing you how to do all of this, but back then there was none of that. So it was very, very, very underground, kind of like punk, kind of like hip hop, kind of like social justice organizing. So these are some of the books that I loved looking at. And I haven't got to see the show in person yet, but I've seen pictures from people who've gone and what they have on their archive. And it's really amazing to see all of that. So yeah, thank you all for having us. And yeah, that's the end of mine.
Thank you all so much. Oh my God, I want to send some reactions too. it was so good to hear all of these different perspectives, especially from this like really unified front from just since all of y'all are part of the same collective. And just to kick off the Q&A, I forgot to mention earlier, but folks feel free to put questions in the chat, in the Q&A, feel free to put comments. But just to kick it off, I was really struck by how all of you guys, your families had such a big influence on you and the work that you're doing now, the work that you were doing even as kids, and just to have that encouragement from family, I feel like there's nothing like it. Like it's so special to have that. And I'm just hoping this is a question to all of y'all. I was hoping that you could maybe speak more about how the familial relationships from maybe your childhood kind of carried over into when you're collaborating with the crew or working with other communities. And I know you all spoke about it individually a little bit in your presentations, but I would love to just hear a little bit more on that.
Well, I'll start off by saying I'm lucky in that my mom used to tag on things and write on things illegally as well. So I didn't get as much judgment as I think some kids probably would have. But I think working as a group, it's a good exercise in putting your ego aside. And I think graph in some cases is all about ego. It's like, look how dope I am. But when we're working on a wall, it's a lot of compromise and like listening to the other person and learning from them and thinking what will make this wall look the best, not what will make my stuff look the best.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think a lot of us come from pretty big families where, even dinner every night is a collaboration, like some people don't like this food, some people don't like that food. They're allergic to this. Like you got to take everybody's needs and wants into account. And I think that trickles into, how we paint, especially, I think with us, like Rob said, it's never really about ego. It's more about like what we're making in the end. Oops, turn that off. What you think, Nisha?
I mean, talking about family, I was really blessed that, like I said, have an uncle um, who was a mentor to me. But for a long time, I used to feel like, oh, I didn't come from a family of artists. Like no one in my family is an artist. I wish that I grew up, you know, around art and I didn't. And then as I got older, I started to realize that they're actually all artists in different ways. And like for example, like my grandma she still like sews her own clothes and she's like a master seamstress. And in the villages in India, there was a huge amount of importance that was put on art, whether it was like sewing or weaving or embroidery or even painting. She's actually like one of the first people that I looked up to because um, when she moved here from India, she had to find work, right? Because the family needed a way to like sustain ourselves. So for the first time, she had to like go and find a job. And I remember she had a job working in a factory in Emeryville. And she used to work for a company called Wildflower and Co. And basically what she did was like she'd have to go around collecting dried flowers that they would then sandwich between glass, and they sold them as like ornaments and things you can hang around your house. And I actually have some pieces hanging around here. And I remember like after my mom would pick me up from school, we'd like go pick up my grandma from work, and I'd go inside the factory, and it was this brick building, and she would be there like soldering the metal together and had these glasses. And I just saw like her workshop. And I realized later that I was like making up this story of like how my family isn't like I don't come from a lineage of artists. And then I one day I really thought about it and I realized that that's actually not true, and that you know, most people of color, like our families were artists in different ways. And so yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to mention that because I feel like that's something that we haven't really been taught, you know, is that we do come from a lineage of like highly creative people, and it's like in our DNA, you know.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's honestly like so affirming for me to hear as well. Like even my nanny, like to this day, like she's still crocheting, she's still knitting, she's still
Yeah.
embroidering, all of that. And also it was just so good to hear from all of y'all, like just that like divergence away from like the ego, you know, and like having it be more of a collective thing. I feel like I haven't heard a lot of that language, especially in graph communities. So it was like really beautiful to hear y'all's approach. I'm gonna get into a few of the questions that we have in the Q&A box. So from Ikvinder Singh, we have, for Miguel, who were your earlier hand style influences?
Oh man, definitely like I would say KTD crew in Berkeley, like Razor, Gigs, Heist used to be back in the day. Those are like the first things I've seen as far as graph. And definitely my uncles with the Cholo styles. But you know what really inspired me was I seen some like Thai calligraphy, and I feel like it was like really long and tall. And I feel like that's probably when I look at my stuff, I'm like, oh, that's really influenced from that. I do this like, you know, it's kind of old English, but it's like long and tall, like that Thai writing I saw back in the day. Um, was I mean, definitely Dream inspired, the Triple OGs. Still, Spy still, man, I saw something Spy did the other day that blew my mind. Um, and who else? Definitely the crew. I mean, my crew, one of my favorite. I mean, I always me and Rob had a crew back in the day called DOA. And one dude, Mike, Little Bosco, he had the best hand styles, hands down. um,
Sundance too. Sundance was dope.
yeah, Sundance, yeah. There was a man. The Bay had a lot. I used to live by the racquetball courts, which is another like little mecca spot in Berkeley that actually accidentally burned down one time. Don't tell nobody. um yeah. I mean, I'm also influenced by not just graph too, I think. I think I take influence from everywhere. Leaves, you know, fucking nature shit, hippie shit.
That kind of also leads us into the next question, which is also for Miguel, but also for anyone else. Nisha or Rob, if you want to chime in as well, please. So it says, the term Cholo style keeps coming up, and I'm wondering what are some primary characteristics of that style? When did it originate? And this question is from Kevin Woodland.
Well, I mean, I think I seen this documentary with Cartoon was talking from LA, and I think he said it best where like everything important was written in like old English. And so like Cholo writing kind of comes from like trying to simplify old English letters and like, you know, and they would usually be writing their neighborhood or their name, which trying to make it look important by making it, you know, kind of similar to old English. I mean, I think it kind of evolved over the years and it became its own thing where, you know, like the block letters. Do I have any examples lying around? Let me see. Oh, like this. See that? It's like that's this dude Pemex. got a print from him, but that's like, the evolution of the Cholo letters, where they're the block letters. Where this is like, so like one of my uncle's early drawings. This is like that style, that Cholo style. Real like look up Teen Angel magazine. um yeah, what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I don't know nothing about that. I mean, besides like, what I grew up seeing in my neighborhood, which is West Berkeley, also known as the waterfront. And yeah, I definitely saw a lot of like WSB tags in the neighborhood that were all done like cholo style. So that was definitely like some of the um like basically like the number one style that I was like surrounded by just on my block and in my neighborhood. So um yeah, like the block lettering and like the calligraphy. Um but yeah, I know that there's like a really deep history there, and definitely created like foundation for a lot of graffiti artists. Rob?
Um, I think y'all said it pretty good. The only thing I'll add to it is to check out Chaz Bojorquez, who's like an OG from LA, East LA. And like when it came to like the OG gangs in LA, he was like one of the first to really style on them, like make something that was like unique. And I think he said his was definitely like the Old English and also like a lot of Japanese calligraphy. So
We have another comment in the Q&A from Ikwinder Singh also. Thank you. With all the garage graffiti in the Bay, it's always refreshing to see inspiring and original work from Trust Your Struggle crew. And that, yeah, that honestly like brings me a little bit into the next question, which was also in the Q&A, but it's got me thinking too. So the question itself says, from Heidi Casa, have there ever been times when it was difficult to decide on images of hope? Or can you talk about transforming ideas of resistance into something else? And it's really got me thinking, especially even with the name of your crew, Trust Your Struggle, but just how hopeful so many of your pieces are, and like trying to center like joy rather than like suffering. Um, yeah, could you speak a little bit more to that? Any of you guys, all of y'all?
I'll start a little bit. Like, I think that's one thing. Yes, that's very hard. What she asked, but I think one of the main things we try to focus on, like you said, is something positive and hopeful. Like, there's like, say for instance, I think we're talking about like doing a mural and like, like having Trump like being his head cut off or some shit. I'm like, but we're like, nah, we don't even want to give power to that guy's face. Stuff like, like we got to keep the positive stuff going with it, and not even not even give life to the negativity. I think that's one way to try to do it, but it's hard. What you guys think?
I mean, I think there's a really dope filmmaker, Mira Nair, and she said like if we don't tell our stories, no one else will. And so a lot of times, we as artists, especially artists who are doing work around like campaigns for social movements, you know, we're trying to inspire people who are like going through it or being oppressed, and oftentimes like the narrative is coming from like the elite or the 1%, or and so that it is really easy to be reactive to it and to be like, I gotta say something negative or like highlight what they're doing that's negative. But I think oftentimes I get inspired by the crew in that we will often do work that is shining a light on who is really championing something positive or like having a victory that's beneficial or meaningful for or the people who are oppressed. And I think that is one of our superpowers as artists, is not only to be able to reflect the times, but also to imagine the future.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to like be in the crew was because, you know, of what it stands for and the fact that like it's not just like any other graffiti crew where it's like you just trying to get your name up. Um, you know, really trying to like involve the community and not just like show up, paint a piece and then leave, but like really try to engage and like um tell the stories of the people. You know, I think it's important for us to see ourselves um on walls and in pieces. It's like really powerful and just a reminder that like um you know, no matter what you're going through, um to just like trust that your struggle will eventually lead to like bigger and better things. And um you know, as I get older and I experience different hardships in life, like it's just like become not just like my crew, but like my inner mantra and something that I live by and I have to remind myself of every day. So um I think there's definitely a lot of, like I said, a lot of power in words and messaging. And I'm happy to hear that phrase, trust your struggle, just like resonates with so many people in so many deep ways.
Thank you guys so much. It was really an honor to be here and share this space and share the energy with you guys. There's one final question from me to Miguel. Are your books open?
Yep. I'm free today.
Okay, that's good to know. I will hit you up privately.
Yeah, let
Um,
me.
But yeah, thank you all so much. And thank you for everyone in the audience who was here, just sharing the space with us, for all of your wonderful comments, for your questions. Um, yeah, take care, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, shout out to the people on there. I see Spy, I see Keena, I see Eos, I see, yeah, who else is on there? One Way.
One way, one way.
Is they I
Yeah.
see, yeah, I love y'all.
Yeah, I see my uncle in here. So yeah, shout out to everybody that's yeah, participating. And you know, thank you Menaja and the whole Letterform Archive team. We just appreciate you guys having us here to talk and chat.
Just one final reminder that the recording will also be available on our Vimeo, so feel free to check it out and share it with folks who weren't able to make it. It's just really great to have it as a resource and just as documentation. I think so many great anecdotes and like ideas were shared also through this. And yeah, all right, well, we're gonna sign off, but thank you guys so much. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Much love. Well, what?